The defense ministers of Europe's Group of Five met in Krakow. The SAFE program was one of the topics discussed. I was just talking about the SAFE program during our meeting. I also raised this topic. For us, this is an extraordinary opportunity to accelerate the modernization of the armed forces. I will do everything to ensure this program comes to force in Poland. The German Minister of Defense, who was present at the meeting, emphasized how important it is for his country to launch the EU loan system. Germany supports the SAFE program. We are convinced of the idea, and we really appreciate that the UK and Canada want to join, because it is crucial for the NATO alliance that not only the EU benefits from it. The SAFE program is designed in such a way that, on the one hand, it supports the German arms industry, and on the other, it provides political leverage over borrower countries. The president should veto this bill. It is harmful to Poland and will make our country less sovereign. Decisions about Poland will be made not in Warsaw, but in Berlin. Poland's ruling government coalition, led by Prime Minister Donald Tusk, remains adamant that the loan should be taken out and urges President Nawrocki to sign the parliament's bill on the SAFE loan.
Zwracam się do pana prezydenta Nawrockiego.
I am addressing President Nawrocki. Mr. President, in the name of strengthening Polish security, in the name of responsibility for the state, in the name of responsibility for the uniformed services that protect the safety of Poles every day, please do not listen to your colleagues from the opposition. Please sign this bill. But the president's cabinet has its concerns about the SAFE program. For example, contrary to the Tusk coalition's claims, there are no guarantees that the money will actually go to Polish companies. We are concerned that the amendments requested by the president's office have not been introduced. For example, for the law on the implementation of the SAFE loan, to clearly state that almost 90% of the funds allocated will actually go to the Polish arms industry. These issues raise serious doubts in our office. The Tusk coalition did not agree to the provision. What's even more unusual, the loan will be in euros as opposed to Polish zloty, taking on seemingly pointless exchange rate risks. If the information that 89% of SAFE funds will go to Polish companies is indeed true, then the question is why we are borrowing in euros. After all, Polish companies deal in Polish zloty. So exposing ourselves to exchange rate risks in this scenario makes no economic sense whatsoever. However, the biggest doubts concern the conditionality mechanism included in the SAFE program.
W punkcie 35 rozporządzenia na temat SAFE.
Point 35 of the SAFE regulation makes reference to a European Parliament regulation, which in turn states that the issue of European funds depends on how a given country implements its policy on justice, human rights, and so on. In essence, this provision lets the European Parliament withhold the funds based on its own interpretation of a country's human rights policy. In practice, this means the European Parliament can, at will, withhold borrowed funds to force concessions from borrower countries, while those borrower countries will still have to pay off the loan. This kind of leverage has already been used against Hungary. In the case of Hungary, the Hungarians did not receive this money. They have already been blocked. Why was this money blocked for Hungary? Because the EU wants to use these tools to overthrow Prime Minister Orban's government in Hungary. What is worse, shifting to European industry is flipping Poland's current militarization strategy on its head. Since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Poland has focused mainly on domestic as well as American and Korean equipment. The U.S. Departments of War and State have criticized the restriction of access to the European market for American arms manufacturers and threatened to review equipment supply contracts with European countries. The United States strongly opposes any changes to the directive that would limit U.S. industry's ability to support or otherwise participate in EU member state national defense procurements. Protectionist and exclusionary policies that strong-arm American companies out of the market, when Europe's largest defense firms continue to greatly benefit from market access in the United States, are the wrong course of action. This means that Poland taking out the loan could seriously strain Polish-American relations. Despite this, Donald Tusk continues to pressure President Nawrocki to sign the bill. Let no one in Poland even think of blocking the SAFE program, because it would mean striking at the very heart of our security programs. However, Nawrocki has no intention of signing any bills he considers harmful. President Nawrocki will make decisions on this matter personally, regardless of what Donald Tusk and others think about it. Currently, after the SAFE Act with some amendments was passed by the Senate, it has returned to the Parliament. After being put to a vote again by MPs, the document will go to the President's desk. human trafficking, money laundering, and smuggling illegal immigrants into Poland. Such were the activities of a gang that was broken up by border guards and the National Revenue Administration. This is a major success after 2 years of hard work. The smuggling network occupied several premises in the Pomeranian voivodeship in the vicinity of the Tri-City. Several cars, money, gold, and jewelry worth over 7 million zloty were seized. This is a recording of the moment when members of a smuggling gang were arrested. Since 2024, it has been led by a Ukrainian citizen and a Pole. Other citizens of Ukraine, Poland, and Uzbekistan were also involved in the group. The operation was carried out by officers of the National Revenue Administration and the Border Guard.
Zatrzymali 8 osób.
8 people were detained, 6 of whom have already been arrested. They seized money, coins, and valuables, but also secured funds in bank accounts. The seized assets' total value was nearly 7.5 million Polish zloty. The scheme involved smuggling migrants, mainly from Colombia, to Poland, under the guise of honest employment. Companies registered outside the European Union were used for this purpose. The criminals may have brought as many as 2,000 foreigners to Poland. At this point, 50 cases have been confirmed. The investigation is being conducted by the District Prosecutor's Office in Elbląg. The investigation concerns the activities of a number of individuals who brought people from abroad to work in Poland and then, taking advantage of their lack of knowledge of the realities of life, but also using physical, psychological, and economic violence, forced them to perform specific work, gaining significant financial benefits from it. The Polish services passed this test with flying colors. 125 border guard officers and 31 customs and tax service officers from the National Tax Administration carried out a series of sudden arrests. Although weapons were used, there were no casualties on either side.
Ogromne poświęcenie w wykonywanej.
This is important work because the border guard not only defends Poland's borders, but also protects us within our country from various criminals who commit various crimes in this border zone, in the border area, or between different countries. Up to 90% of migrants illegally crossing the European Union's borders use the services of smugglers. The latest operation is just another example of the dedication of the Polish services. Since 2021, the main channel for smuggling illegal migrants into our country has been the border with Belarus. Operation Lock was a joint operation carried out by the Belarusian KGB and the FSB. It was the first time on such a scale that migration was used as a hybrid warfare weapon, as a precursor to the Russian Federation's subsequent attack on Ukraine. The illegal routes used by immigrants to enter Europe opened the borders even to those who should not be allowed to cross them. As a result of their influx, we are seeing a gradual decline in security. Over 17,500 foreigners committed crimes in Poland last year. The statistics are disturbing. This is as many as 1,000 more than in the same period last year. The Americans are concentrating naval and air forces around Iran, which are to be ready for a possible attack this weekend. In response to growing pressure from the US, the regime in Tehran has called on its allies for help. Exercises titled Maritime Security Belt 2026 have begun in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz, with Russian and Chinese vessels joining Iranian ships. Senior US national security officials have informed US President Donald Trump that an attack on Iran could take place as early as Saturday, according to major US media outlets such as Fox News, NBC News, and CNN, citing anonymous sources. The White House is currently considering the political and military consequences of a potential attack.
It's proven to be, over the years, not easy to make a meaningful deal with Iran. We have to make a meaningful deal, otherwise bad things happen. But we have to make a meaningful deal. But they have a great relationship with the representatives of Iran. It costs you 100 times what it costs to make peace. We have a man at the end, and we do have some work to do with Iran. They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You can't have peace in the Middle East if they have a nuclear weapon. And they can't have a nuclear weapon, and they've been told that very strongly.
The second round of indirect nuclear talks between Iran and the United States ended on Tuesday. Both sides described the discussions as productive, despite continuing differences, and agreed to stay in touch. Washington is now waiting for a written proposal outlining its approach to resolving the current impasse.
What is the goal if there is a U.S. military strike?
Well, we're going to make a deal, or we're going to get a deal one way or the other.
But with a military strike, is it to wipe out their nuclear program?
I'm not going to talk to you about that, but we're either going to get a deal or...
America's biggest ally in the region, Israel, strongly supports the immediate and unconditional dismantling of Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Prime Minister Netanyahu says this is a key step toward reaching an agreement. We are working in close cooperation with our greatest ally, the United States. I've explained to my friend President Trump the principles that Israel believes should guide negotiations with Iran. We are prepared for any scenario. One thing is certain. If the Ayatollahs make the mistake of attacking us, they will face a response they cannot even imagine. At a time when the US is deploying ships in the Middle East, Russia and Iran began joint naval exercises yesterday in the Gulf of Oman and the northern Indian Ocean. Russia has just signed a strategic partnership treaty with Iran, although it does not include a mutual defense clause. The naval forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran regularly conduct various exercises around the world, such as BRICS in South Africa and Milan in India. Joint exercises with Russia are held annually as part of defense diplomatic activities. In Iran itself, the atmosphere is combative and optimistic. Iranian state media reported that around 5,000 graves have been prepared for American soldiers in the capital's largest cemetery. Tehran residents are afraid to speak to Western media, and those who have been persuaded to do so are convinced of the strength of their army. It is possible that war between Iran and the United States is the only way to end this long-standing rivalry, but the enemy will be surprised. We are not afraid of these threats. We have been hearing them for many years. And even if an attack were to take place, our people are not the kind to surrender to the enemy or feel humiliated in their presence. The United States and Israel believe that Iran is seeking to build nuclear weapons that could threaten Israel's existence. However, Iran claims its nuclear program is purely peaceful. According to Axios, there are no signs of a diplomatic breakthrough, and the evidence points to an imminent U.S. military operation. If Trump gives the green light to the operation, it could take several weeks.